Welcome to Great Power Politics. I'm Hartmut Lenz. This video is just a short introduction to this new form of course which we will have this year, which is called a hybrid course. And it is quite interesting because it's a completely new concept. It is not like last year that we will have an online course which is kind of creating an online space where we don't meet physically at all, but rather a hybrid between some parts which are online and other parts which are not online but in person in the classroom. But at the same time, if you're not able to be in this classroom, if you're abroad, if you can't come to the university, you will still be able to join these sessions which we have in class. So this kind of dualism is a new concept once more, and I hope we will make it a successful formula to, at the one hand, have this kind of physical and also individual kind of connection with each other, where we can meet face to face, but at the other hand, make it accessible to all students to participate in this course, even if they are not able at the moment to come to Soka University here in Hachioji. Let me take you through this introductory video in several steps. First, I will kind of quickly introduce myself in case you don't know me yet. Then I will talk a little bit about the course, what Great Power Politics is about, what the purpose of this course is, what I hope to achieve in terms of learning, but also in terms of the scope of the topic. And then in a third part, talk a little bit more about the practical issues, how this course will take shape. And again, we have gained quite some experience in the last year, but it is a new form once more, and so I really hope that we will be able all together to make it a success and a fun experience. So to introduce myself, as I said earlier, my name is Hartmut Lenz, and I'm a professor of international relations here at Soka University. I've been at the university for more or less 6 years. Before that, I've been teaching especially in the US and the United Kingdom. I have been, just before coming to Soka University, I've been a Lever-Hume Prize Fellow at the London School of Economics. Before that, I was a research fellow at Harvard University, the Gunda de Munzburg Center for European Studies. And before that, I was a lecturer and Nuffield Fellow at Oxford University. So I do have taught in several institutions and in several parts of the world. But I must say that I really enjoy working at Soka Universities, primarily because our students, including Phila and other departments, are really curious and active in pursuing knowledge and understanding the world. And I think this kind of interaction is something which I really enjoy having. Well, let me first talk a little bit about the concept of this course, why I think it's worthwhile taking this course, and where I think the scope of this lies. And so the key issue I want to focus on is the role of power in international politics. And we do see, especially in recent years, with the trade war between the United States and China, but also with conflicts between India and China, the United States and the European Union, and other major players in the world, we do see that power structures are shifting, that we have a change within this kind of maybe more established international order. And I want to kind of dissect this and kind of understand what these kind of change mean. Does it mean more conflict? Does it mean opportunities for maybe a more peaceful environment? And what are the conditions that it shifts to the one direction or to the other? The way I want to do this is kind of in some form of dualism. At the one hand, I want to look at it from a theoretical perspective. So we will look at writers like Joseph Nye and Eikenberry, Cohen, all kind of thinking about the international system and as its entire in its entire kind of scope, seeing what the role of institutions, international institutions, and the role of great powers are in this kind of circumstances. But at the other hand, I also want to go down and kind of look at it in a much more practical way. I want to look at the developments and the changes which happened on the ground in different parts of the world, but also in different countries. And the reason why I think this is important, because there's often a discrepancy between these kind of very macro perspective of the international system, which by default needs to abstract from the individual problems and the individual kind of circumstances. And then on the other hand, the microcosmos of domestic politics, domestic development, and the challenges each of these countries and regions are facing in coping with the modern world. And I think one very recent example for this is if we look at the current COVID-19 pandemic. And what we do see here is that, of course, this is a global problem. This is a global issue which affects everywhere in the world, and in almost very similar kind of ways. But at the same time, a lot of the solutions we found in the last year are not necessarily global, but local. So different countries are going different paths, have different successes and different failures. Some countries have been very good in preventing the virus to spread, but they're not so good in rolling out coherent vaccination programs. So, for example, countries within Europe, like Germany, are kind of struggling with rolling out vaccination. But at the same time have been relatively good in prevention. Other countries like Japan, where we live, we could probably say the same thing. Other countries like Israel, the United Kingdom, but also the United States have been really challenged by the COVID pandemic and had disastrous effects. But accelerated in their vaccination programs and are much further ahead than the countries I mentioned before. So we do see that global problems exist, but at the same time local solutions and local changes are driving these kind of global problems. And this kind of connection between the macro perspective and the micro perspective, I try to address within this class. And I want to kind of use this to sharpen our understanding in not only looking at either the big picture or the very small picture, but kind of making this connection and therefore getting a more complete view of what is going on in the world and what are possible solutions for arising conflicts. So in this way, the theory and the practice should be really kind of connected. The first part of this class will be really about theoretical concepts. How do we kind of define power? What is the role of international institutions? What is do they mitigate conflict or accelerate conflict? What kind of can be done to reduce conflictual or potential conflicts and mediate between them? But then in a second stage, I will look at different regions. I will look at especially some of the superpowers like the United States, China, India, but also maybe the second-ranked global powers like the European Union, Russia, Brazil, in order to kind of see what developments are taking place in these specific areas. I kind of categorize them in terms of rising powers versus declining powers. This is not necessarily kind of, should not necessarily be seen as a kind of a given truth, but rather as a thought-provoking concept. So we can kind of change it and kind of and work with this, see whether it is actually something which is really true, which is kind of reflecting, or if this concept has no resemblance in the empirical world. So I want to check this kind of connection between the theoretical and the empirical kind of evaluation of it. In the third part, I want to look at specific conflict areas around the world. This can include something like the South China Sea, also the trade war between the United States and China, but also less obvious conflicts like fighting piracy in the Indian Ocean and others, to kind of show how changes in the power structure from a global perspective are involved in dealing and kind of creating and resolving conflicts around the world. So these three parts: the theoretical part, the kind of connection between the macro level and the domestic micro level, and the third part about specific conflict scenarios, they all together kind of build the building steps for this course to kind of get a comprehensive understanding about the role of power in global politics, but also the changes of the international system, the effects of the changes of the international system, looking at them from these kind of different angles. So I hope you will enjoy this, the content on this course, and make it together with some kind of active participation into a successful class outlet. So let me briefly, at the end of this introduction video, talk a little bit about the more practical aspects of this course. And here, of course, we do know, as I said in the very beginning of this video, that we are dealing with a hybrid class. So the aim is that you should be able to participate in class as well as from home in case you're not able to come to class. So therefore we have different kind of parts of this class, and some things are online, other things are done in person. Let me start with the in-person classes. So once a week we will have an in-person class. This class will be done in the form which you are familiar in a classroom. Of course, we do need to think about COVID prevention, but generally speaking, it will be kind of dealt in a more traditional form. At the same time, there will be technical facilities which enable you to participate in these classes, even if you're not on campus, if you're not in the country, or if you for other reasons can't join the class on campus. This doesn't mean that you should be encouraged to stay home and do it from home, but rather that if there is a real reason why you can't participate, that you are still able to participate. So that is one part of it, and I hope that we have vibrant discussions and kind of engage with each other and embrace, of course, the situation that we can actually see face to face. The second part of this class will be an online lecture. In this online lecture, which I will produce each week for the content of the class, you will be able to kind of download this either from our portal site, from our Padlet site. I will also make a YouTube channel, and I will make a podcast where you can listen to an audio version of the lecture. So I try to make it as easily possible, or as easy as possible, to to listen to this, and this is of course not just like an optional feature, but a really mandatory part of the class, which I expect you to do and to understand. The advantage of this is that everybody, no matter where you are, can participate in these classes. But also another advantage, which students told me in the last year, is that if something is not really understandable, or or some topics went too quick, etc., you have the ability to actually go back and listen to it again, or at a later stage, if you study for the classes, for the exam, you also have the opportunity to actually go back to the specific lectures and kind of rewind this information. So the first part will be in-class teaching. The second part will be these online lectures. Another thing which I will provide is that we have a graduate student who will be available at the time when the second class would normally take place, and will be there for answering your questions, helping you with specific content and concepts. And so you will be able to work with her one-on-one in person to kind of answer any open questions there. So this doesn't mean that you should not contact me. Of course, I am available for your questions as well, and I actually encourage you to work with me. But she will be there each week, and you can basically drop in to see if you have any questions and ask them very spontaneous there, and discuss things with her as well. She's as I said, she's a graduate student of the SIPS program, extremely knowledgeable, and I will introduce her in our first session so that you get to know her. So we have in-class teaching, we have online lectures, we do have the support of graduate students. We also have our Padlet site, which is if you haven't worked with it, which is something like an online Blackboard where discussions, information can be distributed to all the class, but also discussions can be facilitated. And the idea here is that this kind of creates a forum where you can think further about the topic, where you can share information which you found maybe in other places on the internet, or in journal articles, documentaries, whatever you can share on this place. But also you can raise questions and comment on topics, and we can discuss it there as well. I will also use this Padlet site to give you some questions during the lecture, or give you some questions in person in class, so that you can kind of engage in writing down short answers on this site as well. The thing which I think is really interesting about it, and why I like to use it, is that it is kind of this collaborative nature. So you can see all the answers of all the other students as well, and that is on purpose so that you can kind of cross-fertilize your thoughts. I will also use some kind of exercises once in a while with Kahoot and others, just to gamify our knowledge and kind of stimulate a discussion. Another big part which will take place in our in-class sessions are presentations from your side. And the reason here is not just to reflect from the individual perspective on the knowledge and the understanding of the concepts of this group, but rather for this group to facilitate discussion within the class at large, and kind of engage everybody in this kind of discussions. So this will help the students which participate in the presentation, but I also very much hope that it will help to stimulate discussions with the class at large. So I think these are the main concepts which I will use within this hybrid class. Of course, it's a new concept, a new idea, and I hope we will kind of make it fruitful and work all together to kind of make this class a success. At the very end, I would like you to tell you a little bit about how this class is evaluated, and that is basically there are 3 parts of it. The one is the presentation I mentioned just to you before. The second, and I think is a very important part, is your participation, that you actively participate by asking questions, raising points, also challenging maybe opinions, discuss topics on our Padlet side, be active on this in this forum as well, and kind of bring the class all together, contribute to the class's dynamics altogether. And so the third part is a take-home exam, which will take place at the very end of the semester. You will get a selection of questions, and you have to choose basically 2 of these kind of questions of the selection and answer them in an essay style. I will discuss, of course, this the detailed form of this at a later stage. So I hope you enjoyed this short description of the Great Power Politics class. I look forward to seeing you in class or online, and until then, enjoy the great sunny days of spring here in Tokyo or wherever you are, and take care. Until then, bye bye.